Hi, welcome back to PageStarter. I am Lisa Furland, and today I have a different episode for you because one of my author clients, Tania Moloney, just finished her Kickstarter campaign. And usually after each campaign, I like to have a debrief session with my clients and see what worked and what didn't work with their campaign. Tania has always been super supportive of other authors and helping other authors, and she graciously agreed to allow me to record our session together and share it with you all. So if you are interested in crowdfunding your book, or you're even contemplating in the slightest, this is a great episode to listen to because Tania really goes over all of the details in terms of what she did to prepare her audience for launch. Her audience were teachers for the launch of her children's book, Nature Ninja Saves the Natural World. Tania successfully crowdfunded her book on Kickstarter with 165 backers, generating over 12,000 Australian dollars. Her original goal was 8,000 Australian dollars, so she ended up with 150% funding. Great job, Tania. Nice work. So thanks for listening, and let's get right into it.
I'd really thought about my budget and what I thought was achievable as a goal, and put that in. That still stretched me to where I thought, I think I wanted to do, 5,000 or 6,000, and then you and I talked about 7.5 and maybe a little bit more, and then I went 8 and ended up at 8, and then I think if I had to put 10, I would have maybe felt a little bit more stressed. But on the other hand, it would have maybe pushed me into action a bit further and a bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a balance, I think. Like, I was more comfortable to have that sort of where I felt comfortable and that I could comfortably achieve given my audience. And I'm still scared I wouldn't. But I think when you have that, I just felt at ease with that. And then the stretch goals for me were really part of actually helping that momentum keep going.
Yeah. You did a really great job, with your email marketing. I think I saw you really ramp it up. And was there any sort of internal barrier that you feel you blasted through during this campaign? Did it force you to work outside of your comfort zone in new ways?
Yeah, it forced me to ask for help. I think I'm not very good at that normally, but when you know that what I knew that my book was something that is really valuable for the teachers in my world. I knew that, and so that knowing that, and of having it tested it out a bit on teachers and shown people the story, not the book obviously because it's not printed yet, but the story and things like that had really helped engage. But I think really asking for help. Emails, I felt like I was, emailing and social mediaing people to death. Like, I felt like I was doing that, and that was hard because I didn't know whether I should back off or not. And then the emails, whilst if people were on my email list, because I have a pretty good size email list and I've built that up over the last sort of 10 years. But if people were unsubscribing, I had to be okay with that. And because I was sending so many emails at one stage, there were a lot of people unsubscribing, which was totally fine, because if it's not for them, then, I don't want to be intruding on them like over and over and over again after about the same thing that they're not interested in. So, I think you just have to kind of keep that consistency.
And just to give anyone who's listening an idea of your audience size, because you have been working on this for the past 10 years. This has been an ongoing process. This wasn't an overnight, okay, I put my audience together in 30 days and launched. How large are we talking in terms of, how many people you have been in contact with?
So on my email list, there's it's probably about the same on socials as well. So on my email list, I have about 6,000 people. And on my Facebook, for example, Facebook page, Nurture in Nature, I have about 6,000 as well. And then a few, less on Instagram because I don't use it as much. And so a lot of those people I had engaged with signed up for a free conference that I ran, a free online conference that I ran 2 years ago. So the majority of those people had not bought packages then. A lot did, which was wonderful. And I found that they were the most engaged and they were the ones opening the emails. But there's so many things that come across your desk every day and you sign up for them and then you just ignore the emails or unsubscribe or whatever. And you have to be okay with that because that, if people aren't interested in that, then likely they're not going to be interested in the other things that you're doing either. So, so it was, I had a large audience, and I could, large or small, as long as you try and engage that. And I could have done that better leading up to the campaign, definitely. But it's hard when you, because, you get, if you create a lot of freebies and lead magnets and things like that for people and they're getting all this stuff for free, then to try and, which is great because it value adds to the work that they're doing. But sometimes then if there's an ask to say, hey, I've got this thing that, I'm asking people to put money towards to buy a package or buy a book or whatever, then it's just a balance. And again, if you know your messaging and you know the people that you're talking to and not just what they're going to respond to, but what's going to add value to them, then it makes it easier to write the email, press send on the email, and be okay if there are people who don't want that too.
Right.
So
because that your messaging is on point and effective, and if it's not resonating with someone, they should unsubscribe for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So, but it hurt. It does hurt when people unsubscribe.
You can't take it personally. You have to, that's part of it.
I don't now.
That's part of it. It's all done. It'll still happen. It's still going to happen. There will still be people. Yeah. And I mean, this is the future of anything is people will come on and people will leave. And so you have to maintain the mindset that there's more people who are interested and coming on than more people leaving. Yeah. I also wanted to remark that you made the accessible version to blind and deaf children the default with all of the books. And I find that this is the first one that I've seen. Maybe there have been others, but this is the first campaign that I've seen that has made the accessible version accessible to everybody, not as an add-on, not if we hit this goal, not once we pass, 8,000, then I'll add it on. That was really core to your mission to make your book accessible to all children. And I really hope that other authors see this and take this as, the way forward, that when we're considering the expenses related to our children's books, you consider an editor, that your illustrator, your formatter, your cover designer, that the accessible version of your book should just be factored in as the expense that goes into it so that all children can read and consume your children's book.
Yeah. And as you said, that was a really core an intentional part of my mission, is that like one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping children see themselves through stories. Now, it's a little bit, there's not much, it's a bit hard to see yourself in a little green nature ninja, but like kids will relate to this. But I love stories, and because there were not a lot of books. There are many more now that had kids, a diverse representation of children, abilities, genders, cultures in nature. And so, in these children's books about kids playing out in nature, there wasn't that diversity. And going through a process over the last couple of years of, my bookshelf is so much richer because of that diversity in those books. But to take that a step further and have those books become more accessible, not only in the fact that children can see themselves in the books, but that they can actually consume and, read those books in the way that are most accessible to them. And so that was I was so passionate about that. And when people asked me, we just want the book, we don't want all the other stuff, we don't, we won't use the accessible versions, and what I was able to come back with that reasoning is this is really important. My mission is for nature for all kids, but books for all kids as well. So when you had that, I would love people to be able to really consider that as well, because creating those, with Richard from Imagination Storybooks, and I know you're involved with them as well, which is just magical, because it once you see the impact that has for children and teachers and parents and communities who support these kids, then it's just magical. And even the teachers, like I would be talking to the teachers on the little book Zoom parties we had, or in some of my social posts or emails, and talking to them about why the accessible versions were important. And so those teachers in mainstream schools for example, were saying, well, our kids will love this, because not only does it highlight sign language, like a lot of the schools in the early childhood settings now without children with hearing or vision impairments are actually using sign language. And to have a child in kindergarten, for example, maybe they lie down for story time and there's the audiobook going with the visual descriptions of the pictures. For all children, not just the children who need that to be accessible for them. But that's such a rich way to learn, because it shows diversity and inclusion in a way that that is really, really grassroots sort of for kids to be able to know that that's the norm. That's that's how it should be. And those accessible versions are not an add-on. They're not an afterthought. Right. They're actually a core part of creating the book and whatever else you're doing. So it's really important, and I'd really really encourage people to have that consider that as part of their mission, and just build it into the budget if you can. So
and just say this is not negotiable. This is what I'm doing, and especially if you're crowdfunding, your goal should cover all your expenses. So just put that into the expenses and crowdfund it, and you're good to go. So
and people get the mission. People get that mission, and when you explain it to them authentically, and you really are passionate about that, then it's pretty hard to argue with. It really is. If they want if they want just the book, they can wait till it comes out somewhere else, and that's fine. But I wasn't gonna dilute my intention for supporting that community with just doing that. So that's a personal choice for people, but I do think that I think that's a really important thing across in all of community, in all of society, that we have those inclusive and diverse options available. So when you're asking people to share about your campaign, and people are really excited, especially the people who really want to support you and your backers, but sometimes they don't just want to share the link, and they don't know what to write, so it's a bit of a block and a barrier. So I found that when I wrote these little copy and paste blurbs saying what I really wanted them to say, but in their what they could change if they wanted to, then it was so easy. Like, I'd post them as an update or on my social media or as a message to people, and then I'd see them on social media like 5 minutes later, because they'd been able to cut and paste and maybe just add a couple of words. And so I didn't do that till very late in the campaign, the last week, actually, probably the last 4 or 5 days. And I would do it again, absolutely, and I would do it earlier. And I would probably even put them in, I know we had talked about it, I just hadn't got around to kind of doing it, but I would put them maybe in a Google Doc with, a few more, just like little one-liners or, a couple of little excerpts from the book and things like that. So I would definitely do it, and I would definitely do that earlier, because I felt like it was actually a way that I could reach out to individual people as well. So people who I already had those relationships with that I knew wanted to share the book or would be interested in sharing the book, the Kickstarter, and then be able to do that. So to be able to send this and say, hey, did you see my new book? Check it out if you love it. Here's a little couple of lines that you could post if you want to. And so many people did that, which is great. So
nice. So I'm wondering, so you reached out to people, gave them a little thing. Would you recommend putting it in your campaign itself? I'm thinking,
Yeah, I
like
think
in
so.
the body of the
Absolutely.
campaign and saying like, hey, if you want to share, feel free to copy paste the following text. Or if you would save that just for, emails and updates.
I think you could do both. Like, I think you could do, I know when we were planning the campaign page and things like that, we moved the shares down at the very start, down further, because obviously we want people to take action and do the pledges rather than go off on social media and off to emails or whatever and share it. So, and then partway through the campaign, I put a couple of like I moved some of those buttons just as text links to go up further.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I have to check if anyone if anyone shared from those. I'm not sure, but I took them off again. So I think you could put, yeah, even just like a little maybe one liner, like a tweet. You know,
Right.
when you tweet like a pre, which you do with the share link. I can't
Yeah.
remember what
The
it's
share
called.
link
What's it called?
generator.
Yep. So you can do that with the tweet particularly. So yeah, I think a couple of lines. I would maybe try both because the whole way through the Kickstarter is one big marketing test, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
you're just testing things and seeing what works and what people really respond to, and what makes. I think that the main thing you need to do is make things easier for people to share it,
Yeah.
or to back it, really, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. You had a lot of really great graphics and instructions on directing people how to back the campaign, which is important because your audience is in Australia and not as familiar with Kickstarter. So, did you have people asking you questions about it or about Kickstarter itself, or do you think that it was self-explanatory on the page?
I think I had a lot of. I'm pretty sure I had the majority of my backers were first-time backers on Kickstarter. So, they were new to the process, and being in Australia, like, we have no idea about crowdfunding really here at all. So, it was a big test.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so
for
to
sure.
be very clear and have like even an infographic that was not only on the campaign page, but if someone was having, wasn't quite sure how to do it or wasn't quite sure of the process, then they could refer to that. If they contacted me directly, I could send them to that. And I'd also made this little, I think you've got one as well, I'm pretty sure, like just a little 2-minute video showing me going in and backing it. And that really helped a couple of people as well. They sort of thought, oh, we can do that now. It's not hard. So
Yeah, yeah,
the face-to-face events were great in terms of visibility and getting it out there. But when you're at an event, like, unless sometimes I feel like it would have been a lot easier if I had the print book and that then they would have flown off the shelves,
yeah, yeah.
But having sort of not having it not there, even though I did events where I had a walking story, like I had my storybook nature trails set up, so it was the book deconstructed so people could read that. To try and get people at an event to actually sign up, create a Kickstarter account and things like that on the day is really hard. So I had flyers that I could give them and they could take them away, but then I was relying on them doing that. So I probably would have, which I would normally would do, but I didn't do this time, but I would have had a sign up sheet where they
Yeah.
actually manually put their details in and then I could contact them. So I think when you do that, obviously you've got, they've given you permission to email them. You
Right.
have their details. They don't just walk away with a QR code that they probably,
It goes in the bag and they never see it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think whilst it was great for visibility and more people know about it, the challenge was then engaging them then and there to do that, which I could help with, and I had my laptop and
Yeah.
but sometimes it doesn't feel like it's appropriate to, I didn't have a book table and I wasn't sitting there saying I'm selling my book, I'm selling my book. I was actually working and doing other events or speaking at a conference or whatever. So I kind of
Yeah.
I didn't really want to hit them with a hard sales pitch
Yeah.
straight away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is a relationship building thing. And so hopefully they can come back. But I think that's good advice is to you get their contact information so you can contact them and say, hey, I would love to connect with you. on Facebook or LinkedIn, like let's connect and I'll, send you a message later about the resources because these are your target audience of teachers and you do want to expand that network and get that stuff in front of them. So, okay. So face to face, collect people's information however you can. But yes, leverage that in-person relationship so that you can follow up with them.
Yeah, definitely. And people are busy. Like we're all busy. And if I know you and I have had this conversation before, if I see something and you see something and we don't do something straight away about it, then we forget and it goes, we go off and do something else and yep, gone. And so to be able to, somehow engage with someone and help them have that almost urgency to do it or just the time and space to do that. So I think that one of the things that I did as well is an online book party. So I didn't call it wasn't really a launch. It was just kind of I had one pop up and then I had 2 planned ones. And that was like a Zoom where I just took people through, like I'd created a PowerPoint just with pictures mostly. There was very little text on them because I don't like being PowerPointing people to death. But to be able to speak to those, why I created the book through the pictures and showcase what was actually inside the book because it is fully illustrated was really great. And then to talk to, and to engage with them in looking at the details in the book. And that was a way I feel that the feedback that I got to the people who attended those live on Zoom was really great because they got so excited because they saw inside the book. But they also then had a chance to ask me questions about the Kickstarter process and then off air later, like I took a couple of them through backing it because they weren't sort of sure how to. So I shared my screen, I showed them and then they went and backed it. So I probably didn't promote those as early enough because I just sort of had the thought about it. I thought, I'm going to try this now. So next time I would definitely have sort of maybe more of those planned out and put them, right at the start of the campaign saying, hey, these are these book parties. And it was really fun. And then I could take some of those, like a couple of them made these really cool reels for them that they shared with me and then I could on-share them and it was just, they were much better at making reels and social media than I was. So it was really helpful that I could just share and put a link on it. But it also gave perspective from the other side. So it wasn't just me talking about it. It was actually them, one lady, Kath, was there with her 2 kids and she was happy for them to be on that. And she took some video footage of them watching and interacting with me.
Nice.
And so I can take those clips and use them in, future marketing.
Yeah, that's gold.
Like that. So
that's gold.
It was awesome.
Having kids interact with your book is total gold.
It was really funny actually because the book is called Nature Ninja Saves the Natural World and it's all about, connecting with nature and caring for the planet. And one of the boys, Jack, is about 8. He has about 30 minutes of tech every weekend. He can go on his, computer and play some games and whatever. And about an hour after we'd finished, I received a text message from Jack's mum with a video of Jack playing Minecraft, but he'd created Nature Ninja, Boo Book and Stick as characters in a Minecraft world. And so that, they were really excited about seeing the characters, engaging with those. Yeah. Excited about receiving the book. And then, and then going outside in the afternoon after he'd had his tech time. So it was really fun to engage just during the campaign, not just after it, but during it was really cool.
Yeah. And that's just like a taste of what's to come. Like there will be more, so many things, and you're going to hear about kids using Nature Ninja in their birthday parties and having Nature Ninja themed things. I mean, it's really just the beginning.
Like if you're doing plushies or little toys or whatever, like I had these made prior, and to be able to kind of use them in some of my marketing and my social posts and stuff like that, I think was really cool because people could actually see what one of the rewards looked like in the flesh, basically. And then I think to another strategy really that once I reached the goal, which I was really grateful for, and I was happy to do that on about day 10 or 11. So I felt like this sort of pressure was kind of taken off me a fair bit, but also I wanted to be able to stretch. And so the stretch goals were really helpful, not only to, obviously try and add value to what the backers were getting, but also to help keep me motivated, rather than, as you said, once you've reached the goal, it can be easy just to kind of go off and have a nap for the rest of it. But to keep that momentum, and right till the end, like we reached the second stretch goal about an hour before the end. And so that was really cool. I liked that, and I liked that I felt like I had time, and I asked my backers what they wanted. Like, there's a Nature Ninja song, and that was actually second. I thought that might be first, but they all wanted the finger puppets first. Yes. So these little patterns. So I just quickly knocked some of those up with some felt that I had, and they'll get a PDF to be able to make those. But it was pretty rough, but they loved those, and the teachers could see the book then being put in action in their classrooms. Which is what they want, which was what all the teachers just want, to be able to have almost a package of, this is a great book and this is what you do with it.
Mm-hmm. Like, here's how to implement the book in the classroom and all the things you need to do that. That's really great. Was there anything about the process that surprised you or that you weren't expecting?
Not really, not that I can think of. I think I probably expected, I don't know what, maybe I expected more support to come from inside of Kickstarter, the people that I didn't know. And so, like, I expected maybe to get some more backers just organically through that. And there were a few that pledged sort of some amounts and whatever they were, but I don't know, in my head I thought, maybe it's up on this platform and people will magically see it. But you actually really have to drive people to those things in a really intentional way. If you can, sometimes you have to do it a bit slapdash and on the run. But if you can do it, if you can be a little bit prepared, it helps. But
the potential is there for other people to find your campaign when you are on a big platform, but there's no guarantee. And, so it's kind of like, it's possible because you're there, rather than, launching on your own website where you truly have to send all the traffic to your campaign. So the potential is there, but and some people just get very lucky, and and then they're like, I had 60% of my backers came from Kickstarter. I didn't know, and it's like, well, we can't rely on that. Like, you can't. That's not a strategy. It's just sort of hoping.
And they weren't. That I knew my audience very well, so I knew what teachers wanted, and I knew obviously it was for other people as well, but I knew what the teachers, the educators, the people at the Nature Connection, people who how they could use the book and in their practice and in their teaching. And so to be able to, and because most of my backers came from off Kickstarter and had never ever backed before, particularly all the Aussies. I think there was a couple of Aussies who'd backed before, but not really. So to have that, it probably didn't surprise me, but I just, in my head I thought maybe it would get more, I don't know, get more sort of eyes on it in there, particularly being a project we love, which I think is an incredible, that pushes you up in Kickstarter's visibility as well, which is really helpful and really great. But it's up to you, I think, really to get to have those relationships and those conversations and build that. You don't have to have a big audience, but it helps if you've got a reasonable size audience who are particularly engaged. So being engaged, through, I think that's one thing that I would have maybe done a bit more of a pre-launch kind of engagement plan, rather than just being a bit sort of slapdash and trying to get it trying to get it all done. The Kickstarter platform itself is really easy to use. It's not very sort of tech kind of taxing, but once you have the rewards worked out and you can work out a little bit of a plan and see what you like from others, and then that part's not that I found myself probably getting sucked into that, to doing that and changing things and tweaking like little aesthetic stuff, whereas my time would have been better spent engaging with my audience.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that because you worry about what it's going to look like and if people are going to like it, it made sense and whatever. But
I know. Well,
the engagement stuff is really important.
Exactly. I mean, the visuals on your campaign are great. All the text is super explanatory. Rewards were set. But yeah, there's only so much return on investing in that, in terms of, once it's visually appealing, it's visually appealing. Like you're kind of done. If all the information is there in some way, either in a graphic or in text, it's there. You don't have to keep adjusting it unless you're getting feedback that something's not clear. Then of course, adjust it. But if you're not getting any of that feedback, it's like, okay, that's not the problem. The problem is, getting people to the page and driving that traffic to the page.
Yeah.
So, and I know that, we talked about it. Your main audience was off. They were on break for the first 2 weeks of your campaign. So would you have shifted your strategy and waited, or are you still happy with the way things went?
I think I purposefully started it in our school holidays when the teachers were all off because of some events that were happening. So it was, I looked for our local kind of, local stuff that's happening, and it was Nature Play Week for 2 weeks, which, launching in Nature Play Week, I think I launched on the same day as that started, gave me 2 weeks of reasons to be talking about nature. So and Nature Ninja and I was lucky enough to speak on the Zoom of their launch, and then have a launch activity at the Nature Play Week launch. So if you can look for opportunities like that, then I don't really think it matters when you launch. Like I didn't feel like it mattered that I launched when they weren't on there, but maybe they weren't attending to their work emails, or they didn't have their work credit cards, or whatever they needed to use. So it wasn't like they were off for, a whole summer or it was 2 weeks. And I think then when they came back, I was able to sort of ramp that up. So hard to say, but it worked. The timing worked really well because of that Nature Play Week that was on. So, strategically, that's kind of why I did it then. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard teachers are hard to get to engage at times anyway, and read their emails, and so it was a lot of it was about the one-on-one contacting people and just talking to them about it, I think, and that really helped because they were the people who shared it with their people who they knew would be interested, and then that way developing those relationships with those sort of that first little ripple, and then being able to have them ripple it out and be able to share as well. So, and they're busy people as well. So if you can make it easy and give them a blurb or something to write, make sure you include the link in it. Like put the link in the middle of the blurb, I reckon. Yeah. Not at the end because it can get cut off, but put the link in the middle of the blurb or right at the, after the first sentence. Yeah. And then it gets cut. Make sure they do it. So
that's a smart idea. Like right in the middle, here's the link again. Usually I do the link maybe 2 or 3 times. Like, check out this great project, link. It's about link. Okay, here's the link again. Just put it in there as many times as possible.
Yeah. I did that in the emails. Absolutely.
Yes.
I put many.
all links go to the campaign. Did you have any canceled pledges? I mean, there were a number of other authors who were live at the same time who were reporting to me that they had a few people pledging and then DMing them saying, hey, I offer this service. I can get your campaign in front of my Twitter followers if you buy this package. Did you experience any of that?
I had a couple of people do that. I didn't have people pledging like large amounts, like $500 or whatever. So I think that if someone does that to you and they pledge like a lot of money and then they say, hey, I could help you, and they've given you technically, all that, it's hard to not kind of get sucked into that. And I had, like, I've got other people I know at the moment who are crowdfunding, and they will often send me an email and say, hey, I've got this email, and I just said, just ignore it. Just leave it. Don't even respond. And like, so my strategy was, if I thought it was something like that, even if they didn't pledge or they, you know, DM'd me or whatever, I would just, in the end, I just wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't say thanks, but no thanks. I would just not respond, because I was fairly confident that they were not going to help me. You know, it was not going to be valuable to me or to them, and you don't want to get sucked into that vortex of kind of desperation. I think if you're in a desperate stage maybe, and you're really feeling like, I'm not going to make my goal, someone's offering to help me get all these backers, then it's really tempting. It would be really tempting to say yes. So you just have to kind of stand your ground and trust that you've done what you can do, and work with your backers and your community or your engaged audience to be able to get the word out there way better than anyone else can that doesn't know you, and their audience doesn't know you, or their pretend audience doesn't know you. So.
Exactly. I mean, this has been, as long as Kickstarter has been around, there have been these third-party people capitalizing on the uncertainty and insecurity of creators. So it's good to be aware that they are out there, and that no, they don't, you know, just always do your due diligence and always, you know, follow up. But generally they're people just looking for a quick buck, and they know that they're a ripe target because of the desperation. Please, anyone share my campaign.
You put that very nicely. You called them what, third party. I don't think I've heard them described like that by a couple of other people.
I really think they're just bots. I think they have these keyword crawlers, and they set them up on Kickstarter for any campaign launched within the past 12 hours automatically gets this very automated message. So you can tell when it's and it's, these are the same people that fill your spam inbox with like, hey, your Google SEO rank for your website is at such and such. I can help you raise it.
Review. I've got lots of reviews lately that I've never seen. So,
given the success of Kickstarter and how you were able to, really rally the troops and offer a lot of value to your main audience, is Kickstarter something you would consider doing again?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely, particularly with the, the feedback that the book got, and the way that I was able to, educate the audience, and people were really excited about that. I think if you have, it was a really interesting, it was a bit of a test for me, really, because I could have launched on my website. I have a good email list. I have a good network, and so for me to try something that was a bit unknown was kind of exciting, and a lot of work, but in a good way. And I think it just it expanded my reach, a little, but it also helped me really get my marketing message clear. And so that, working through getting, knowing your audience and working through the different packages and reward tiers and things like that, and thinking about, testimonials and the things that can really help a Kickstarter be successful. Those things, I now have those things to use on my own website. So I have those assets, those testimonials, those marketing messages that I can use. And so it was just a way to really focus yourself on doing that, I think. Marketing is a bit scary, for a lot of people, particularly, children's book authors who don't love it. But I think when you, it was a really good way to focus my attention on all of the things that were important in helping sell my book. And so I would, I definitely think I'd do it again. So
that's good.
I might leave it a little while. Book 2
give it some time.
Give it time. I have to write book 2 first, but yeah. So I mean, I want my Nature Ninja books to be a series. So to be able to, have already a crew of supporters on there, in the backers, to be able to update them and say, hey, book 2's coming out, keep an eye, this is what's happening, and we're going to go on Kickstarter again. I think, it was really, yeah, I mean, you never know. I might decide to do it again, I might not, but I really enjoyed the process, and I would definitely, I would definitely consider doing it again, definitely. Working with you was awesome, that was great, and working with your group, like to have those, even if you were meeting on the Zooms in the middle of the night, I could put you in my earphones and walk around, walk around in the morning, go for my morning walks and listen and learn from the other people in the group.
Yeah.
And so that sort of helped set me up. I actually felt like I knew mostly what I was doing because of the conversations that you had with all the other crowdfunding people in the group, which is great. So I think that community of supporters who are actually going through or about to go through or who have gone through that same experience really helps. Yeah, it really helps.
Learn so much when somebody else presents their issue with their book and you're like, oh wait, I could do that for my book. Oh wait, and it just activates your imagination a bit more in terms of putting you in that creative problem solving mode versus sometimes when we're struggling, okay, what should I do, and it's like you get trapped in your own head, and then you hear somebody else present a very similar issue and how they're working through it, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. I can do it this way and apply it, and I know how to build it for my audience and customize it for my messaging. So yeah, I love the group, and I think it's great. So I'm glad you were able to really benefit from that, even though time zone wise we're so separate. So I'm glad that that worked out.
I was really excited at the end that I could, the last few weeks actually the time changes worked, that it was still late at night, but it wasn't like the middle of the night. Yeah. And so really just in that in those final weeks and during the campaign, when I could actually get on and just bounce some ideas around with everyone who was on the call, was really, that was awesome. So and it's lovely to support other people who are going through the campaigns, and to sort of, for them to feel, or to be able to support them, but because they supported you as well. So
yeah, and you're such a great member of the supportive author community. You are there with advice, you're helping people out, you're interviewing them for your podcast. I mean, you're so wonderful at really lifting up other authors, and that's a huge support and valued asset that other authors really appreciate. So I know you put in a lot of goodwill, and all of that requires time, effort, and energy in the lead up to your campaign. And you have to do it really from the goodwill of your own heart, and coming from others, and then just you hope it's returned, but it comes from
with no expectation. I think you have to definitely go into to everything without expectation of return. It's lovely when, as you said, when people do, but if I know that you have walked through the forest, like that book, I love that because it serves my audience. And Lindsay Keller Madsen, so I did a book tour, a virtual book tour, hosted one for her as she was launching her book.
Into the Wild.
She'd done it originally. Yeah, she'd done it in Kickstarter first, and then she was now launching it on Amazon, and did a virtual book tour, and had reached out to me to say, I'm doing this book tour, and I said, hey, I'd love to do that with you. And so I was able to host a book tour with my audience for her. And then during my campaign, she hosted an Instagram Live for me. So nice. I didn't, there was no expectation of that give and take. But when you have that, that I don't know, it's just, it's nice to be of service to others. In lots of ways. So, and I interviewed Geraldine as well for her book, because we had these similar. I was interested in, I was really interested in her book, in her Melusine, and I think Frances I interviewed as well. Actually, I did interview Frances too. So, to be able to build that community and those relationships, and even if it had nothing really to do with my audience, like Frances's book, Baby Worries, was about a baby, a baby who worries about what it's going to look like when he grows up, because all of these crazy looking rallies. But she was a teacher, through that relationship, she was a teacher. She used to run environmental programs back in the UK and in Tassie. And so I could, promote her book at the same time as talking about her experiences
Mm-hmm.
and engaging children in storytelling, but with a bit of an environment kind of lens as well. So I think there's always a way that you can talk about someone else's work and books
Yeah.
and make it relevant.
Yeah.
You just have to
Find the
think about it a little
thread.
bit.
Yeah, find the
Yeah,
thread that you have in common
yeah,
and do that. I mean, I think it is so important, and that's a skill really to, be aware of your surroundings, find the thread that makes it relevant and say, "Hey, I would love to lift you up and support your book because it relates in this way." And then, and again, it's all relationship building and, genuine connections with people. So
yeah,
that's the hard
absolutely.
part. That's the hard part.
Yes, yeah. But it's that's the most, professionally, yes, that can be rewarding as well. But that personally, that's the most reward. Those relationships are what makes the world go round, really.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're going through an experience that is similar to other people who can relate to that, then your ideas might spark something, as you said before, for them, or their comments might spark an idea for you. Like even in one of the calls, I had been meaning to write the blurbs, and going back to the those little blurbs for people, and I had just been putting it off and not doing it, and then Margit had said, "Oh, what about writing these blurbs and copy and paste?" And the next morning I did that straight away, and that was where a lot of the shares and a lot of the action. So just that reminder that it was something I'd been meaning, almost a little push, that nice little push.
Yeah.
to remember to do something that you had thought you were just putting off. So
yeah, taking action during your campaign is the most important part. Taking timely action, because you just don't have the time. There's just no time left.
One of the other things that, like, we had talked about was maybe getting sponsors for the books, and whether it's a sponsor for a classroom, whether it's a sponsor for the book itself. And so I had reached out to our local special development school in my area, who I've worked with before, and I love going to hang out with those kids and teachers and do nature play. And also I can't wait to take Nature Ninja in there, because it's going to be awesome. But to be able to reach out to potential sponsors and supporters and even grant funders. So I wrote a grant application for to potentially cover those accessible versions to a local wind farm, which is, fits with the message of the environmental message of the book. They want to support local community, and they ended up postponing their grant till after the Kickstarter. So that may still come through, but those relationships and being able to have that clear message and understanding, and then further develop that relationship with the special development school, and then have them as part of one of my stretch goals. So one of my stretch goals was the big one was to create a Nature Ninja song for classrooms, but to create that in collaboration with the local school. And so to go in with those kids, create and have accessible versions created of that song as well. So whilst the song was a stretch goal, incorporating the accessible version into that was not. Like, that was part of, if the song was happening, that was happening with it.
Yeah.
And so that continuity of mission and and message is really important, and a real one, not just adding it on because it sounds good.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I hope it becomes the default for children's books everywhere, and as indie authors, we have that control.
Yeah, follow along, because I'll be waiting I'm getting the book printed at my local printer, which is part of the message as well. It's an eco-friendly printer. They're 10 minutes down the road. I'm able to do that, but I'll be waiting, so there's no books on boats and not having to travel thousands of kilometers to get to me, so that environmental impact is lessened. But I'll be waiting, and it'll be all over my social media. I'll be waiting at the end of like the print press, like I'm waiting for a delivery of a baby, I think. I'm just waiting for the first one to come out.
I think it's so great, and I'm so glad that we did, because with Australia and printing, it's so expensive to do any sort of print on demand. So the offset printing was really the only option. to keep the costs down and then the environmental impact minimal. So
Mm.
I'm glad. Would you be open to sharing your printer source and so
Yeah,
we can direct
absolutely.
Australian authors there so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can do that?
So they're called Star Printing, and it's in Warrnambool and Terang. So I'll just say Terang because no one ever really knows where that is because I live in a tiny little town beside a volcano. And but just yeah, so Star Printing. And if anyone has any questions or they want to get in touch with me, please do about the Kickstarter, about anything, like if I can support people, I'd love to do that as well. And about the printer, because they're an amazing printer, they're just awesome. And yeah, they ship everywhere in Australia as well, so they're not just here, but I'm lucky enough they're 10 minutes down the road. So
Perfect. Great. Well done. Congratulations again. And again, thank you for being just a source of support and information and knowledge and all the good things. And I look so forward to working with you in the future and seeing what you come up with and, keeping a relationship strong because you're a wonderful, wonderful person. I love what you're doing and 100% support
likewise.
all your hard work.
Yeah, likewise. And yeah, and as I said before, your group is just, and your coaching has just been like, I felt like I wasn't on my own and have had no, I could have worked it all out myself, but to have you and the rest of the group was just so vital to be able to keep sanity, but also yeah, just to keep you on track and be a shoulder or a friendly ear to listen to if it was a bit stressful at times. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Well, it's
thankfully
great.
for
Well,
that.
you were super easy to work with, and you definitely
Thanks.
had your approach of like, I'm going to put it all in there, and then we'll just keep carving. We'll just keep
Yeah,
carving it down and sculpting it down. You had a big lump of clay at the beginning, and then we just kept
yeah,
trimming it until the
yeah.
final shape took form. So
I think
that
that
was
worked. That worked really well because sometimes when you've got a blank page, it's hard to start. But once I started, like I think even you just, I started. I was looking at the Kickstarter page, wondering where I was going to begin, and you gave me these little banners
Mhm.
that we had talked about what sections I sort of wanted, and then with the banners, I was like, right, they were on there, and I could start writing, and then I vomited all out my words, and then I cut them back.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
I
so much, Tanya, for being so generous with your time and your feedback and letting us know what worked and what didn't work and what you do differently. And I will link to everything so people can find Nature Ninja, place an order, get that going, so that
yes,
even though
yeah,
the campaign's
yeah,
over, the book
yeah,
is still accessible and all the wonderful things that are coming. So thank you so
yeah,
much.
absolutely.